on the show. As you can hear from my voice, I am very excited.
I am.
Thank you very much, everyone.
I am more excited than you because I've been looking forward to coming back to the show, and glad to see you this morning, shining bright like the sun.
Like the sun. I dressed up for you.
Ah, wow! I am lucky. Hi, Tunde. Good morning.
Morning, Valentine. Welcome back, and good morning, Niall.
Thank you so much, Mr. C. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Valentine. Good morning, Ian. Good morning, Tunde. Good morning, Lagos.
Good morning, Mr. C. Good morning, Cindy.
We're live on the freshly pressed 981, the new month edition, 1st of November 2021. Freshly pressed 981 goes through today's stories. The top headlines are analyzed in detail by Tunde Kufi and Mr. C for today's conversation. Thank you so much for joining us here on Smooth's Breakfast. Now, we'll go through the stories, but to share your thoughts and contributions during the show, please send it to WhatsApp 0809 444 0981.
You can also send a message on our YouTube channel. We're streaming live on YouTube. YouTube is Smooth 981 FM Lagos. You can search for us there. All right, we'll go straight to our stories for today. And Mr. C, I'll be starting with you for this morning. The headline reads, Reps panel demands investigation into invasion of Mary Odili's home, according to the Premium Times. Now, many of us would remember Justice Mary Odili not just as the First Lady of River State at one point, but also as now the second most senior Justice of the Supreme Court. Over the weekend, news story broke that there were armed personnel in front of her home. She was afraid, she was scared for her life. And now the House of Representatives Committee on Judiciary has called for an investigation into the raid on the home of Mary Odili, a Justice of the Supreme Court. What do you have to say about this? Have we heard any? I don't think we've gotten any statement, any formal statement from security operatives. And why would they be intimidating a Justice of the Supreme Court?
Thank you, Aya. So on Friday, news broke out of a raid on the residence of Justice Mary Odili, who incidentally is a serving Supreme Court Justice and second in the current hierarchy. Now, after the news broke, it was discovered that the warrant purportedly used to effect that operation was defective. Now, the warrant was issued in respect of a property known as number 7 Imo River Street. Justice Odili lives at number 9. The search warrant also did not indicate the name or names of the person targeted or the people occupying the property. Now, further checks reveal that a magistrate in the Federal Capital Territory issued the warrant. Now, the report so far indicates that the affidavit in support of the ex parte motion that was used to obtain the search warrant is interesting. Some Aliyu Umar Aliyu Abubakar guy says he suspects there's some illegal activities going on in some houses. Then goes forward to say that he believes strongly that there are illegal activities. And on the strength of that very weak affidavit, a police officer yet to be identified applied for a search warrant and it was gotten. Now, the magistrate has since revoked the search warrant. But the EFCC chairman on Friday night said the EFCC was not involved. The DSS has also denied being involved. Now, I'm concerned that the event happened on Friday and everyone is so quick to come out with denials. The question then arises, when did you check? What investigations did you carry out that were so fast that you were able to make a categorical conclusion, a categorical finding? Now, beyond all of this, it's a very sad state of affairs that we have rogue security agents operating freely within the Federal Capital Territory and targeting senior members of the judiciary. Now, of course, the AGF has said the matter is being investigated because the magistrate in question did say that he was misled by the Ministry of Justice. Now, the AGF says he doesn't know the team that went, that the team that went is not a team properly constituted under his ministry. Now, it's all fun and games, and sadly, nothing's going to come out of this.
How do you think so? I mean, why do you think so? Because, I mean, this is a Supreme Justice, a Supreme Court Justice.
Yes. But
do you think she's just going to fold her arms?
So, Valentine, so the truth of the matter is, officially, all the bodies have taken a position that were not involved, right? Now, if they all deny knowledge of this incident, what we're going to get to is unknown armed men wearing uniforms or attires identified or linked with existing state security agencies carried out the raid, and that they are taking all necessary steps to apprehend them. And we all know how that goes. This is not a new song. In 2016, there were similar raids on justices. Some went to court, and the state didn't win any of those cases. Now, the question is, was she invited for an interview and she declined the interview? Why would you raid the home of a serving justice at night?
The why is a big question, and I feel like the elephant is in that why, because if there were preceding events that happened, the question now would be who could we or who could we indicate as maybe that could be behind this, because if everybody's raising their arms up in the air and say we are not complicit, we're not complicit. It's about following the story that happened before the fact.
So speaking to that, yeah, the NBA gladly has said they're going to get to the root of it. And the first step is the magistrate. You issue the warrant. So first of all, tell us who were the individuals that showed up in your courtroom. Identify them first from your records. Yeah. Now, when we do that, let us see the documents that were placed before you that you supposedly reviewed in issuing the search warrant. From there, the trail will start. But what I fear is, yes, we can identify them. Will there be a political will to discipline them?
But sorry, you're a lawyer. Just final question here.
Yes.
A search warrant, is it valid without a name? That's addressed to.
It's invalid because a search warrant is always addressed to a specific person at a specific location, and it speaks to the quality of work being done before search warrants are issued. This search warrant should never have been issued.
Thank you. MI from Akoka says this is a shame. A whole justice of the Supreme Court being harassed by unknown security operatives. This is deja vu. Is this Gestapo approach the new strategy to counter the judiciary into becoming a rubber stamp like the other arm of government? This botched sting operation shows the level of incompetence we're dealing with. Completely unacceptable.
Memeka Ede says, I do submit that Attorney General of the Federal Malami should step aside for a thorough investigation on the invasion of Justice Mary Odili's residence. Malami should resign. Why the raids on senior judges?
All right, so let's move on to our next story. Today, 150 days after ban, Nigerians await truce between federal government and Twitter. Guardian reports. Uncertainty continues to trail federal government's plan to lift the ban placed on the microblogging platform Twitter in Nigeria 150 days after and exactly a month since President Muhammadu Buhari promised to ban Twitter. We all remember the October 1 speech by the president. Contained in that was the fact that they were going to lift the ban on Twitter. Even the word ban is still in contention because he had said earlier that he didn't ban it. But why do you think there's a delay? In this report, there are a few things highlighted. So they gave Twitter a 10-point condition, and they've acceded to 9. Just one outstanding, which is having a physical office here in Nigeria. What's your take on this, and also the loss of income for businesses and individuals?
Exactly. I'll come to that in a minute. Just in the same way he said he didn't ban Twitter, it wasn't actually the clearest of promises that he would be lifting it either, so this is us inferring and reading between the lines of what it is that they've said. And the whole messaging and signaling for this, entire, what has now become a saga of our own making, or at least of the federal government's own making, is that the messaging is muddled and it's difficult. I listened to an interview given by Tolu Gunlisi, trying to explain this. And as articulate as it typically is, it was absolutely, there's no other way to say it. It was just, clutching at straws, going here and there, a bit of, wandering off and then coming back. It wasn't coherent. And I really felt for him, being in that position and it's almost like trying to defend the indefensible. Do you understand? So on the measure of that alone, you say he did okay. Now, they say they issued 10 requests to Twitter. Do you know what the 10 requests are? Do you have the specific
No,
details?
we
We
don't.
only know the
We
outstanding
only
ones.
outstanding, yes.
Precisely. Right. So from the beginning, the messaging has been very what's the word now? Obfuscated. It's not clear. It has never been clear. Now down to this last item that they must open a presence in Nigeria. And first thoughts that comes to mind is that it is never, no one opens an operation in a country on a whim. There are many things that sort of come together. So that speaks to the ease of doing business. That speaks to the climate and the attitude within the country. There's certain things that signal. We're talking about a sitting deputy chief justice home being raided. That's signaling. Do you understand? There's certain things that happen within the country that is signaling. When you open a business in any jurisdiction, right, you're thinking about what's the economic environment, what's the political environment, what recourse can you get in the courts, if anything wrong is done to you. We're just not sending out the right messages. So I don't, if this is a condition, I therefore am not particularly confident that we'll arrive at a resolution anytime soon.
Despite the fact that they said in this week, they're looking at this
Didn't
week.
they say, but I mean, it's a month since the last time, right? And I'll tell you why, because, they say Twitter is not saying anything, but one of their sources said, look, that they do not want to comment on anything, but patiently await the process of lifting the ban. That sounds almost like someone saying, like, you guys are talking to yourselves. Yeah. It's like, it's a monologue. We're talking to ourselves. When you guys are ready, you'll come back around. And then look at it. Twitter's lockdown, COVID, recent couple of years, it has helped Twitter, to be honest. I mean, when their, sort of their stock was sort of plateauing over the last, previous years, with everyone sitting at home, a lot more but a lot of people have had a lot more opinions to share. So Twitter is doing very well, financially. So it's not like they really need Nigeria or need your users to, boost revenues or anything. It is more the implication of what Ayo said. Conduct a lot of business on social media. Twitter a little less than maybe Instagram, right? But a lot of business is conducted on Twitter. So has anyone taken stock of the impact?
Well, some people
right?
have done like an estimate
of how much exactly the impact of the people. So these are the kind of things that we expect from more forward-thinking approach.
Dr. Lawal sent a message on YouTube. He says, amazing. There's so much noise on the radio, but justice is home. Now the shoe is on the other foot. How many times have the same judiciary denied Nigerians justice?
All right. Thank you very much. Let's go on to the next story, Mr. C. The Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, has filed a lawsuit against the President Muhammadu Buhari, over his failure to probe allegations that over 880 billion naira of public funds are missing from 367 ministries, departments, and agencies. They are seeking an order of mandamus to direct and compel the president to promptly investigate the alleged missing amount of public funds and to ensure the prosecution of those suspected to be responsible. I think, of course, we talk about the work that SERAP does, especially when it comes to prosecuting freedom of information and holding the government to account. But this looks like a very tall order. It looks like something, it sounds great, but what is the possibility of the success of this, and perhaps even break it down to us? 880 billion naira on unaccounted funds.
Okay, thank you, Aya. So there was a report issued by the Office of the Auditor General in respect of the 2018 annual report. And in part 2 of that report, it states that federal government ministries, departments, and agencies spent over 880 billion naira without proper appropriation. Now, that is a clear contravention of the existing rules and regulations. Now, I find it particularly disturbing because that's just the sum for 2018. What was the sums for 2016, 2017, 2015? What are the sums for 2019, 2020? Was 2018 an outlier in the sense that it was the only year in which these MDAs spent money without appropriation? I doubt that. There's a general culture of impunity all over the land. And it is disturbing that the chief law officer of the Federation, the Attorney General, has not deemed it fit to investigate these allegations. Having received a report from a government official, they cannot say it's the opposition trying to bring them down. at the very least, what they owe the Nigerian populace is to carry out an investigation. But for reasons best known to them, they haven't done that. And Serap has been forced to file a suit asking for an order of mandamus compelling the government to do that which it ordinarily should do. Now, this is it's a very big problem, and it's sad and tiring to continue to read stories like this. Now, we're heading to another election cycle. Do we want to continue listening to stories like this? If we don't, we know what to do. But we're waiting for the court dates, and I'm pretty convinced that at the very least, any judge who handles this, who hears this matter, will order the federal government to do the needful. Whether anything comes out of the investigation is a completely different conversation.
Thank you for that last statement. Now, um, leading into this story, hopefully we'll just get a bit optimistic from this one. The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has announced a new financial instrument, which it says will support companies to boost local productivity, create wealth, and stave off importation responsible for Nigeria's foreign exchange crisis. The first paragraph, reads like a tough ask, but Tunde, based on the CBN governor's statements, Godwin Emefiele, he announced this on Monday, saying that this, in a sense, will be under his direct supervision. That it will go in different tranches. The first tranche, really, 100 for 100 means 100 companies in 100 days. Trying to exactly boost, the economic development. It's still a bit vague, right? But this hands-on approach. How do you think it's going to play out in terms of improving the economy and boosting the naira?
I mean, talking about hands-on, I mean, people that I know that, I've had went to work with him directly, he's actually very hands-on, which came as a surprise to me. So, yeah, anything good or bad that comes out of CBN, you can lay that.
So,
yes.
Sorry,
because he is very involved. Okay, the bit that I hasn't is unclear to me is why I don't know whether it's from the story on our instance why they described called it an instrument and not a policy. That's not clear. An instrument would describe something like it's either when it's an instrument operating currency or whatever it is. Especially since this announcement was made at the CBN's launch of the CBDC.
Yes.
Right now, I'll come to that in a moment as to how a CBDC or the INAR can facilitate programs like this. And if you put aside your thoughts as to how around intervention or direct intervention from the central bank, there was recently a story of NNPC building roads and stuff. So if you sort of come to make peace with that and realize that we're in an unideal situation and it requires maybe different or creative approaches, you can say okay, that the central bank, because it has specific objectives for the economy and fiscal targets that it's trying to achieve, can do interventions like this. For me, the key thing has always been transparency and being certain that these funds get mobilized and deployed for the things that they are meant for, because it's very easy in America, and you can't blame us because of our history to be cynical, so that there seems to be a lot of social intervention programs suddenly coming up and rolling up just in time for election, either to, and there's always a recency factor when it comes to elections, and or even being even more cynical, if the expending of these funds is opaque, you say that they're putting aside a war chest to, combat the elections. But let's put all that aside and say that this is above board, because he has mentioned that they'll be doing this through financial institutions, so through banks. So obviously it's not something that is entirely within the CBN. If they say they're doing it through banks, you can validate, hopefully. And then they say they will be publishing in the Nigerian daily, so Nigerians can verify. It's very important. It's very, very important. There's a lack of trust.
Yes.
Exactly. The social contract has been thrown out the window. So a lot of things have been, have broken down. So this is a good move. If they do it, and people can actually validate and verify, and I hope our journalists do the job and making sure that these are not just, funny companies, for lack of a better word, just created for this purpose. So it's a good one. With the launch of the INAR, the central bank also is, because this is not the first time they try to do interventions, right? They try to do intervention in the agri sector, working through banks. They've argued also that our commercial banks haven't been as efficient as they would like, or impartial as they would like in the disbursement or deployment of those funds. With a CBDC, with INAR, the central bank is now able to directly, credit participants or people who qualify for the program. So there, it's a bit more control, and they're certain that the money and social intervention funds get directly to the people who it's intended for, and that they are hopefully that they're real people and it's deployed in the manner that it's supposed to. So
thank you so much, Tunde. And CBDC, for purpose of clarity, is Central Bank Digital Currency. Yeah.
yes.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to the next one. Anambra core members afraid, lament absence of insurance cover. Punch reports the story. So this weekend, Saturday to be exact, 6th of November, is the much anticipated, should I use the word controversial? I
Yes.
think that qualifies, Anambra gubernatorial elections. Of course, there have been concerns around different things, and now today the core members, who are usually used as ad hoc staff, have come out to express their concerns around the elections. Some members of the National Youth Service Corps serving in Anambra State have expressed concerns over the manner the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, is going about the state's governorship poll scheduled for November 6th. They spoke against the backdrop of the insecurity that has ravaged the southeast, as well as the sit-at-home order by the indigenous people of Biafra. Many of them have said their parents have recalled them, and I don't think a number of us would be surprised at that.
Can't argue with that.
Yeah, you can't argue with it. And then I think another pressing issue is also the responsibility of their parent body, which is the NYSC, who are meant, at least to a very large extent, safeguard the lives of these young ones. I remember we also saw the manual where they advised on how to relate with kidnappers. Maybe they need to release another manual on how to deal with election violence, since that seems to be the way that they are protecting the people. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, Mr. C. Should NYC members be recalled? Should they be used as ad hoc staff if they're not guaranteed their safety?
Okay, thank you, Ayo. So I agree with you that in the run up to the Anambra gubernatorial elections fixed for Saturday, 6th of November, have been anything but ideal. There's been a lot of controversy. All the parties had issues selecting candidates. All the major parties had all sorts of issues selecting candidates, all sorts of court battles, court suits. Then there's been the ongoing series of violence where even security agents are being brutally killed. Now, in the midst of all of this, INEC insists that it is ready to conduct the elections on Saturday. I'm not so sure. Now, listeners have at the backdrop there's an existing sit-at-home order issued by IPOB, which to some extent has been successful. Now, depending on the school of thought you're persuaded by, it's either the IPOB is effective or the people are just afraid of losing their lives. Either way, people have not really gone out to do this. They go about their activities on a Monday. Now, IPOB has threatened that if Nnamdi Kanu is not released before the election, there will be no elections. Now, in the midst of all of this, you then ask innocent core members to serve as ad hoc staff.
Yeah.
Now, if the times were ideal, there's nothing wrong with them serving as ad hoc staff, but the times are not ideal. The security situation in Anambra is so tense that it would be inhumane and almost wicked to ask any core member to serve as an ad hoc election official, because even the state security officials have shown they can't protect themselves. So who is expected to protect the core members? And let's talk about insurance for core members. The INEC officials themselves, so they have insurance covers. So it's a tall ask. It's almost irresponsible, I dare say, and they shouldn't be made to do it. And I would advise them, look, safety comes first. What's the worst that will happen? You get an additional year, but you're alive to do it.
Kazim says if I were a call member, I wouldn't need a parent's to recall me back home. I would be home by now. There's no security for these folks, especially the fact that most of them are not from the state.
Do you know what I'm wondering?
What?
Is that they even posted them to Anambra State with a volatile situation in
Exactly.
terms of the security,
The core members were posted to Bono, to Yobe. So
and they went.
Well, they're expected to. Whether they went or
No,
not,
I don't want to
that's a different
preach.
thing.
I don't want to preach disobeying the law.
But the real question is, do these people really care? Like those who do the posting, or it's just okay? Let's just do the needful. This is what's been done over the years. Let's just do it, regardless of the reality of the situation.
Just numbers on the board. So
Yeah.
numbers on the board. There's no
Shift things around,
there's no connection. There's a disconnection from reality. Or is the ostrich approach? You just stick ahead and stand and refuse to acknowledge the reality.
Federal government to allocate special budget for fencing of schools. Since we're on the issue of security, this is a story from this day newspaper Tunde. The federal government, the federal capital territory minister Malam Muhammad Bello directed that the appropriate budgetary provisions made for this fencing, and that he said he seems very optimistic that this will solve the security crisis in those places, and also said that owners of uncompleted buildings will be tasked to immediately take steps to secure and complete them, as such buildings are used as criminal hideouts. What are your thoughts regarding the success of this move?
Let me focus on his comments around schools. You know, you always have that one story that entertains.
Yeah.
So this is it. And my first thoughts are, look, is what are the issues with schools? Is it petty crime, or is it kidnapping and abductions? Right? What would a fence help you do? It'll help you
make it more difficult for you to scale.
Yeah. And I'll come to that in a moment, right? So if you have a fence, it's because you're trying to prevent people from trespassing or encroaching, right? And or trying to keep the students within the school premises and manage them properly. While that is a good thing, these funds, and because this will be a huge budget, there's no mention of how much, that'll be another thing. It's immense. It's fencing, we all know. It's going to be a lot of money. And this is why I said there's always that story that entertains. Can those funds be put towards the school and schooling itself, right? Learning aids, infrastructure, salaries towards the even if it's buying food for the kids, because these are public schools, even if it's buying food for the kids to sit in class, right? Then you have less of a problem of them wandering off. If the content is good and there's quality, there's a chance that you retain some of them in class. It's because there's nothing going on in the session. So and he's not even saying it's because he's trying to keep the kids in. He's saying because of security. And I'm like, is that the problem with the land? If abduction and kidnapping is issued, do you think your fence will prevent it? It won't. Come on.
There seems to be an answer here.
Yeah, Sean was saying bandit or kidnapper or terrorist. All I need is a fence to stop my mission. Oh, look, a fence. Let's go back.
Mission failed.
Wow. Why didn't we think of this?
It's a movie.
Yeah, why do you think of this ages ago, man?
Exactly.
Come on.
Fence.
Yeah.
So innovative.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chibok won't have happened.
No. Guardian reports on this story. Next story, Mr. C. Federal government extends NIN SIM linkage till December as the NIMC issues 66 million identification numbers. The last deadline, because there have been a series of deadlines. The last one was October 31st. Today is the 1st of November. Where do we go from here?
Okay, so Valentine, yes, you're correct. There have been 4 extensions: January, March, June, now October. And I'm sorry to say this on air, but if I was the Minister of Communication, I would have taken a different approach. I would take it you don't need those lines anymore, and those lines will be revoked. Now, the new policy is before you get a new SIM, a new number allocated to you, you must produce your national identification number. It's that simple, because there must be a reason why in 10 months you never found an hour to sort this out. So continue to extend it. You're only showing that you're not even serious about your own deadline. And they will continue to take you for granted.
The minister said the date was sacrosanct, by the way.
Yeah. So what's the meaning of that word again?
No, sacrosanct.
They've used it before.
Oh, yeah.
Sacrosanct, according to them, it's just it's a nice sounding word. Sounds serious when it is pronounced, when it's uttered, but that's where it stops.
Well, why is it so difficult to do? If I don't provide 2 references for a corporate account to be opened in the bank, I don't have access to that bank. That is something that's as normal as water, right? Drinking. So why is this so difficult?
You see, the average Nigerian will take a lot of liberties. With the example you just gave, it's clear. You don't provide the references, you are not accessing that account. But here, oh no, okay, we understand you haven't had time, you've been busy, you're not just interested. Continue to use the line. We hope that by December 31st, you'll find the time to show up and register. No.
So do you think this would also heal people not obeying certain directives because they just believe it's not serious? Because like a parent not having structure or following through with your threats in this case or deadlines, it makes people not obey.
So where there are no consequences, you will find behavior like this. Where there are consequences, which will adversely affect the personal interests of the individuals concerned, they do the right thing.
Tunde, you had a thought?
Yeah, very quickly. There's a key thing we're overlooking as an economic angle to it, as a commercial angle. So wherever money is involved, you can always tell. So
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Drop smack moment. We're done.
Honestly,
Special thanks to all messages and those who sent the messages at
on
this time.
YouTube. Yeah, Olubemi said it's no longer relevant and now dangerous to service core lives, seeing that there are security issues in almost every state of the country. And then Atab Mao says, are the core members compelled to carry out election duties or is it voluntary? The core members should have the option of not being an ad hoc staff of INEC.
Join us in 9 minutes to extend this conversation with your calls. 014489981 is the number to call. Special thanks to Tunde Okufi at Big Coops on social media, Mr. C at D Mr. C. Stay with us. I am Valentine on Smooth Breakfast.